Over the weekend, the US bombed Venezuela, extracted de facto President Nicolas Maduro, and announced plans to, quote, run the country. Unsurprisingly, this has reignited concerns in Europe that the US may use a variation of its Venezuela playbook on Greenland, which US President Donald Trump has continuously threatened to annex over the past 12 months or so. Trump himself made the connection on Sunday in an interview with The Atlantic, saying that, quote, we do need Greenland, absolutely. We need it for defense. And said that while his current focus is on Venezuela, he'll revisit the issue of Greenland in, quote, 2 months to 20 days. So in this video, we'll take another look at Trump's long-standing interest in Greenland, and whether he could actually try and annex it. If you love staying informed and want some of the best reporting on YouTube, then subscribe and ring the bell for more. Let's start with some context. Greenland is an autonomous island and part of Denmark, sitting just northeast of Canada with a population of about 55,000 people. The US has long had an interest in acquiring the territory. In the 1860s, Washington opened talks with Denmark to buy Greenland and Iceland, and in 1910 even offered 2 Philippine islands in exchange for Greenland. The US only formally recognized Danish sovereignty in 1917 and occupied the territory in the Second World War for security reasons. Denmark rejected another purchase offer in 1946, but in 1951 signed an agreement granting the US responsibility for Greenland's defense. The topic of purchasing Greenland then died down as the number of American troops on the island dwindled too. But in 2019, Trump floated the idea of buying Greenland again and kicked off a diplomatic row by tweeting a photoshopped image of a Trump hotel in the middle of a Greenlandic village. Now, while Trump originally framed buying Greenland as sort of a massive real estate deal, he's since argued that it's necessary as a matter of national security. This is because in recent years, the Arctic has become a zone of intensifying geopolitical competition between the US, Russia, and China. As climate change causes Arctic sea ice to recede, previously inaccessible mineral and hydrocarbon deposits are becoming easier to reach, an issue of particular interest to Trump, who sought to reduce America's various resource dependencies. Perhaps more importantly though, the melting ice has also raised the prospect of new commercial shipping routes, opening across the Arctic. As such, China and Russia have been remilitarizing in the region, the latter reopening old Soviet bases, and China talking about creating a new polar Silk Road, which has sparked anxiety in Washington. Anyway, as you probably remember, after the 2024 election, Trump made a number of comments suggesting that he wanted to expand America's borders. In December 2024, Trump suggested that Canada should become the 51st state of America, told a crowd of supporters that he wanted to take back control of the Panama Canal, and posted on Truth Social that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. At the time, many officials and commentators shrugged off these comments as a sort of provocative joke, in the same way that they shrugged off Trump's push to buy Greenland in 2019. But this all changed following a shocking press conference at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump refused to rule out using military force to take Greenland, and threatened very high tariffs against Denmark unless they agreed to give up Greenland. Hours later, Trump pledged to make Greenland great again, and in January 2025, Donald Trump Jr. visited the island. Then in March, he was followed by Vice President J.D. Vance, who gave a speech at the US military base on Greenland, criticizing Denmark for failing Greenlanders. Now, we should say at this point that while Greenlanders aren't completely happy with their current constitutional setup, they have in fact been on a slow path towards independence for a while now, they don't want to be annexed by the US. A poll from last January, for instance, found that the vast majority of Greenlanders want outright independence rather than incorporation into the US, and would far prefer Danish to American citizenship. Politicians in both Greenland and Denmark have firmly voiced their opposition too, asserting that Greenland is not for sale. Things did then die down a bit after Vance's visit, but in August, a bombshell report by the Danish national broadcaster alleged that at least 3 US citizens with connections to Trump had been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland. And in late December, Trump sparked a fresh row after appointing the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, as the special envoy to Greenland, who said that he would make the Arctic territory a part of the US. Trump also added that Landry understands how essential Greenland is to the US's national security, and said that he would, quote, lead the charge against Russian and Chinese influence. Anxieties about Trump's expansionist sentiments were then revived by what happened in Venezuela over the weekend, which were taken as yet more evidence of the administration's disdain for international law and norms. These concerns were amplified when on late Saturday, Katie Miller, a right-wing podcaster and wife of one of Trump's senior aides, posted on social media a map of Greenland in the colours of the American flag, alongside the word soon. The post sparked anger among senior Greenlandic and Danish officials, who reaffirmed that the island is not for sale. Denmark's ambassador to the United States stressed that NATO member Denmark had significantly strengthened its Arctic security efforts in close cooperation with Washington, which it continues to regard as a key ally. However, in an interview aboard Air Force One on Sunday, Trump argued that Danish authorities have done little to improve security on the island, claiming that all they've done recently is add one dog sled. In the same interview, when asked about the implications of the US's military operation in Venezuela for Greenland, Trump reiterated his desire to annex the island, saying we do need Greenland, we need it for defense, and hinted at a timeline for the issue, saying we'll worry about Greenland in about 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days. So could it actually happen? Could Trump actually annex Greenland? Well, there are lots of reasons to be skeptical. Unlike Venezuela, Greenland, as part of Denmark, is a democracy, and crucially a NATO member. A US military intervention could thus push Denmark into triggering NATO's Article 5 collective defense clause, creating a sort of intra-NATO crisis, as NATO's European members are called to defend against one of NATO's North American members. This might sound implausible, but it's worth noting that last year France suggested it could deploy troops in Greenland to defend against US intervention. This is why it's perhaps more likely that Trump will try to negotiate a purchase of the island rather than just invading. That said, the unpredictability of the Trump administration means that if such efforts fail, almost anything could be on the table. If you're interested in this, in the latest issue of our magazine, we discuss every major election that happened in 2025, running through races in Poland, Australia, Canada, Singapore, Germany, Japan, Norway, South Korea, the Netherlands, Argentina, Bolivia, Cameroon, Czechia, and Jamaica, helping you to catch up on stories you might have missed, as well as understanding the trends taking place around the world. There's so much more in this issue too. In addition to our cover story about the new Middle East, there's also full sections dedicated to UK, EU, and global news. The EU section includes our interview with fellow creator Money and Macro. We discuss how to fix the European economy, Macron's fall from grace, and how Albania has implemented an AI minister. The global section discusses why Trump's mandate isn't quite what it seems, how politicians conquered social media, plus the election summary I mentioned earlier. And our UK section runs through the rise of the new left, why this year's elections are so critical at all levels, as well as the strategies that Starmer ought to take to maintain power and Farage to gain power. Subscribers to Too Long automatically get 20% off every copy as long as they stay subscribed, but as a special New Year offer, you can get an additional 30% off your first copy if you use code NY2026 at checkout. Find out more by heading to toolong.news or by clicking the link in the description.